Hey guys, Brandon here, and today I thought I would make a quick tutorial video on kind of getting into long exposure photography with DSLRs. In like the last month or so I've been really getting into it, kind of going out to cool places and trying out some long exposure shots, and I'm really getting addicted to it. So I thought I would kind of share with you guys what I've learned from it and kind of some tips and tricks. So if you've never taken a long exposure shot, hopefully by the end of this video you'll be able to go out and get shots like this. I'll talk about these shots a little bit more individually in the settings I've had for them. But anyway, what you'll need for this, for long exposure photography, is pretty simple. You just need your camera that is very flexible in settings, obviously pretty much any DSLR. The one for this video I will be using is the Canon 70D. That's why I'm recording with the GoPro, because I usually record all my video and take my pictures with this. But because I'm using it for this demonstration, I have to record with the GoPro. So hopefully everything looks and sounds okay with the Hero 5. But anyway, for this video I will be using the Canon 70D. If you have another DSLR, the menu systems will be probably different, but that's okay. Just take the rules and everything like that and just all the settings and just apply it to your camera. You probably know your camera's menu better than I do. I know my 70D pretty well. But yeah, you could actually even do long exposure on GoPros as well, so you could even apply these rules to GoPros. Anyway, so pretty much what you'll need is the camera and then something to really stabilize it with. There's pretty much two things. I don't have the third thing, but you obviously need a tripod, or at least just set it on the ground. I've been able to get away with a couple long exposure shots when I was kind of improv. I didn't have my tripod. I just put it on the ground and took a picture and kind of painted with light or something. But anyway, tripod is pretty necessary, and then also what you can get is like a remote to where you can, it's like a velometer. You can kind of take the picture with the remote so you don't rattle the camera, and that will also allow you to take pictures longer than 30 seconds because built in, that's all like this Canon will limit me. We could put it in, I'll get more into this, but we could put it in bulb mode and it takes a picture for as long as I hold down the shutter. The problem with that though is, and even for a 30-second picture, if the people say this, and I can notice it on a few of my pictures, that even if it's on a very sturdy tripod and you take a picture and then let go, that little shake is enough to throw the picture off, especially if you're holding it down for long exposures. But for the pictures that I showed you, I didn't have the intervalometer, I didn't have the remote, and they turned out pretty good. Probably better with all three things. So I will link in the description exactly my setup, this exact tripod, the 70D, and if I can find a remote that I will probably end up buying soon, I'll also put it in the description, all you could buy on Amazon. One thing I almost forgot to mention is that if you don't have the remote and your shutter is going to be 30 seconds or less, like actually in most cases, what you could do to eliminate that little bit of a movement that you might have by pressing your own shutter and maybe moving the camera, you can actually go in your settings and put a little timer on it, like 2 seconds, so that way you click it and then 1, 2, and then it starts taking the picture. That way you don't touch it at all. So that's going to be different for every camera, but that's how I did it with this one. So yeah, I almost forgot to mention that. Getting into the settings though, once you have everything, all your, if you're just going to use the tripod and camera like I've been doing because I'm so novice, you would just want to frame your shot right, so you could kind of crank up your ISO, which is kind of like the lighting, like fake lighting, just to frame up the shot. Once you have your shot framed, get an idea for how you want the shot to look like. I don't know if you're taking pictures of cars or just a sky or whatever, but anyway, kind of just picture that, get it in your head. And then you want to go and put your camera on. If you're going to use a shutter speed of 30 seconds and less, you could just put it in manual mode. And then once you're in manual mode, I'll just turn my camera on here. You're going to want to locate your ISO and bring that to as low as possible. ISO is just, it's going to brighten up your picture, but kind of artificially. If you take a picture with ISO 100 and then 3000, if you really crop into it, or even you don't have to crop into it that much, you will notice that there's a lot more noise and grain in the higher ISO pictures. So you want to stay as low as possible. I'd rather just, if I'm going to use artificial light, I'd rather just crank up exposure in Lightroom or in post. So just try to keep your ISO as low as possible. To get more light in, you could do things like open up the aperture more, and that's what I did here. So I went with ISO 100, and this lens I'm using here, I used a couple different lenses for the shots I showed you earlier. For the one of the bridge, a 360 bridge here in Austin, I use this lens right here. This is a 24-105 Canon lens, and it has f-stop of 4 all the way through. And so for that picture, I actually used it at 4.5. What that aperture is just how open the aperture can get, and the more open it is, the more light it allows. So I was at f4.5 for that picture. Now the next most important thing is your shutter speed. This is obviously, if my shutter speed were very, very quick and this was during the day, the cars wouldn't have motion. I would just stop the cars on a dime. So you could do that with shutter speed, but because I wanted this look at night with the cars rolling through and like the red and the white headlights and tail lights, my shutter speed for the bridge was actually, now that I look back, it was 1 minute. So I was in bulb mode. I wasn't in the other manual setting because I don't have the intervalometer or anything like that. I just put it in bulb mode, and I used my phone as a timer, and after a lot of trial and error, I did 30 seconds, I did 2 minutes, and I figured 1 minute was the best, so I just used my timer on the phone and just held down my shutter for a minute, and then that's how the shot came out, and I was pretty happy with it. In fact, actually at first it came out really, really orange. So that's pretty much all the settings you can do for getting all the lighting and the movement that you want right. But you could also go into your menu, and if it's too orange or too blue, you just need to adjust your white balance. And then I realized that for that bridge I was actually at Kelvin 3000. So that's what ended up working. I went too orange, too blue, a lot of trial and error, too long exposure, too short, but keeping the ISO the same, because the ISO, you do not want that getting too high. If you absolutely need to, that's like the last resort. I would tamper with the aperture and shutter speed before you touch ISO. If you could keep that as low as possible and the camera as still as possible, your shots will be really, really sharp. Now for the shot of Mount Bonnell, also here in Austin. That one I was not using this lens. I was using my 10-18 millimeter Canon lens. It was the f4.5. And I was at 10 millimeters, so that would allow me to be at f-stop 4.5. And a lot of trial and error with that one. I tried a minute exposure, then went up to a minute 30, then a little over 2, or then I did 2, a little over 2. I realized 2 minutes was the best one for that. And again, I was at ISO 100. My Kelvin was 3000, so it kind of gave me a decent blue tint, but I could still kind of adjust some things in post. So that's kind of what ended up working for me on that one, and that was actually a really sharp picture as well for holding down the shutter for 2 minutes. It would have only been sharper if I used a remote. But anyway, that's kind of it for all this. You could take a ton of different long exposure shots. I don't know if you ever heard about painting with light. I'll probably make a video dedicated to painting with light, but that's really fun. If you ever see like pictures of I'm sure wedding photographers do this a lot, like a bride and groom at night with like a light dancing around them. It looks kind of cool. Obviously cars like you saw, night skies moving, all that kind of stuff. It's all with long exposure. So just the shot that you want, just get it in your head and then go out and try to take that picture with what I told you today. If the shutter looks like it's way too long and there's too much movement, then take down the shutter. If it looks too bright, move the shutter and aperture and all that kind of stuff. So it's just about trial and error. There's apps out there that will tell you the correct science into what settings you should have, but that's not really me. I'm just a trial and error kind of person. So I hope you learned something from this video. This was kind of a very surface level introduction video. So I hope that you were able to stay with me. I'm kind of new to it myself, but taking enough shots to where hopefully you guys learned something. Anyway, if you guys have any questions or you want a follow-up video or a tutorial on another subject with photography, just let me know. Until then, thank you guys for watching and have a great day.